Senior analyst David Gergen is with us tonight from Salt Lake City. David, I was struck in that conversation, a 24-year-old young blogger, precisely the generation President Obama hopes to reach in the region, saying, reject the teachings of jihad, embrace the United States and democracy, and wow, was she so skeptical. What can the President of the United States do tomorrow to reach her?
I'm not sure he can, John. This is... the president and his people see this as a pivotal moment when bin Laden's been killed, and maybe the Middle East can make a pivot toward democracy, and he can be a force for change. But he's unlike the Cairo speech 2 years ago, where there was a great atmosphere of hope about what President Obama of the United States could accomplish. Now there is this attitude of skepticism overseas, and as you look around the Middle East over the last few months, things have gone pretty sour in a lot of different places, as you well know. In Egypt is sliding toward an economic crisis, and its foreign policy has become less positive toward the United States. Libya in stalemate. Syria, the crackdown, the United States has had trouble trying to figure out how to deal with this. And then, of course, with the peace process, George Mitchell's resignation as envoy to that, I just think underscores how moribund the peace process seems right now. So if you look at the totality of this, is a hard place for the president to come. And look at those numbers that you just showed in a Pew poll, John. It's, across much of the Middle East, favorability toward the United States is at 20% or lower in that Pew poll. And why does that matter so much? Why does public opinion matter? It matters because there are all these democratic movements, and the rulers of these countries are having to pay a lot more attention to the attitudes on the streets. Those polls mean a lot more today than they did a year ago.
And that young activist and blogger, she's very smart for 24 years. She says one of the reasons we don't trust the United States is because, you support one country, let's say Bahrain, that's your friend, and they can have a crackdown and it's okay. But then when someone else does it who doesn't align with U.S. interests, it's bad. The inconsistency, she called it hypocrisy. How does the president deal with that?
That's another question, John. He's clearly used today to set it up on you're going to be tougher on Syria. That removes some of the hypocrisy. But I don't know how he comes up with a coherent plan. Maybe he can have some principles. But, so I think this is going to be very difficult in the near term to generate excitement in the Middle East about his policies. And it's going to be equally difficult to generate enthusiasm here at home. After all, tomorrow he's likely to call for more American aid for that part of the world. This is the very time we're having talks about how to slash the budget here at home. And most Americans want to hear about jobs in the United States, not about creating jobs in Egypt. So it's going to be hard for him. I admire him for having the courage to go do this, but I think in the short term it's likely to be met not with a lot of applause. Maybe over the long term, this speech will be seen as seminal.
And heading himself into a re-election context, David, how does the president address the fact that you heard Ed Henry, George Mitchell would like an Obama peace plan? Bill Clinton had a Clinton approach, or at least a framework. This president does not get along with the Israeli prime minister. Can he afford to singularly try to say, all right, Mr. Prime Minister, you don't agree with me, so here's my plan, or does he have to back off, again, given the domestic political context here at home?
Well, there are reports that there is a division within the administration, that the Vice President and his National Security Advisor, Tom Donilon, and a couple of others do not want him to be very specific tomorrow. They do believe we're going into an election season. They don't want to get out there in front with a plan. But that Hillary Clinton would like something much more specific, as did George Mitchell. It sounds to me like we're not going to have a plan, but the president, just over the horizon, as you would know so well, we've got a huge problem coming up to the UN in September over this very issue. There's going to be a lot of pressure on the United States to get more involved before September and head off some sort of unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state.
David Gergen, as always, smart insights. David, appreciate your time tonight. We'll stay in touch.
Thank you.